Do you suffer from gas? That's right, gear acquisition syndrome. It's a term used to describe the incessant want for every new thing out there on the market. It's sort of like that kid in the candy store effect where you see everything, you want it all because it's shiny and brand new. But the question is it really something we need, or is it mainly something we just want and it's not really something really necessary? In this video, we'll cover 5 factors to consider before buying a new sample library, and this will be equally applicable to beginners and advanced composers alike because none of us are immune to the feeling of wanting the newest thing. So hopefully this gives you some context and some insight. Let's get into it. So the very first thing to consider is the practicality of the library. Now, obviously, this is really important because if you're not going to be using a library that you have your eyes on, what's the whole point of purchasing it in the first place? Unless you really take pride in owning every single thing out there on the market, which is kind of sad to say the least, or a little bit stupid. And I can say that because I've had that same mentality in the past. When I was first starting out, I wanted all the orchestral libraries. I wanted all the string libraries and woodwind libraries and brass libraries. And now I look back at myself and just like, why were you so stupid? Like, why would you want every single thing that just blows up your hard drive space and you know you're not even going to use 5% of it, right? So, or I should say 95% of it. I'll probably only use 1 to 2% of it, to be fair. So you have to consider the practicality of the library, and that comes down to the style of your music. If we're writing orchestral music, solely orchestral music, and we don't do anything with synths or sound design, and suddenly a library comes out that specializes in sound design, but you know you would never use it, then what's the point of purchasing that library, right? And there are a bunches of free libraries out there as well that you can experiment with. Like there are free synths out there that you can download, play around with, see if you like incorporating synths in your music. There's lots of ways to trial different libraries for free and see if they're a good fit for you and your music. So definitely think about the practical aspect. If it's not a good fit for your musical style, then don't purchase it. You're just wasting money in that regard. The second factor to consider is, of course, the price of the library. So if it's out of your budget, then you shouldn't be really looking at the library, right? I will say though, there is something tempting about seeing a library that's just out of our budget, and it almost gives us a sense of, wow, that thing must be worth the cost if it costs that much. And if I just make that extra leap to purchase that thing, man, I'm not going to regret it because it must be so great, you know? That's sort of the mindset I think a lot of us have. So it's sort of a no-brainer, right? Like if you have, let's say, a $300 limit on your sample purchasing for a weekend, then you don't want to go above that. You have to be very strict with it, you know? Maybe it's like 310 or 320, then fine. But if it's like 350, 400, then naturally you're going above your limits, and that sort of tests our self-control as well. Can we really respect the budgets we set for ourselves? So pricing is, of course, a really big thing. Now, of course, if you have a lot of disposable income and you just want to buy lots of stuff, then, you know, more power to you. You can do whatever you like. But for a lot of us, we're just hobbyist composers. We don't really make a living doing music, writing music. We don't get regular paid gigs all the time. So it's not like a business expense where we can just purchase a new tool just because we got paid handsomely for it, right? Like a lot of us have to be very deliberate with our purchases. So definitely consider the prices and your budget when looking at a new sample library. Factor number 3 is the depth of sampling. So how deeply has this library been sampled? Is it a very on-the-surface library where there's maybe just one articulation, just one dynamic layer, just one set of round robins, or are you looking for something that's way more in depth, right? Like maybe it has 7 dynamic layers across the legato and sustains articulations. Maybe it has 10 round robin samples that trigger between different samples to avoid that machine gun effect, right? How many instruments are they sampling? How many dynamics? How many articulations overall? Like all of this stuff should factor into your purchase as well. So if you have a library that's more deeply sampled, then it will typically serve better as a workhorse sort of library. Like think about the Berlin series or the Spitfire Symphony Orchestra from Spitfire Audio. Both of those companies, Orchestral Tools and Spitfire, they have dedicated series of libraries that specialize in traditional workhorse functionality when it comes to orchestral writing. The Berlin series, very deeply sampled, right? Like just the strings alone, I think are like 200, 300 gigabytes. So you have lots and lots of different articulations, lots of dynamics, lots of legato types, lots of mic positions. You have ultimate flexibility there. But if you don't really need all of that, and you only need, let's say, one mic position and the basic articulations, legato, staccato, sustains, marcato, trills, tremolos, things like that, then maybe that depth of sampling isn't as necessary for you. So maybe you go with something that's way cheaper, maybe like $100, $200, or maybe $300, $400, like Cinematic Studio Strings, right? It comes with the basic articulations you need. It's sampled deeply enough, but it's also light enough on footprint that it doesn't take up huge amounts of space on your external hard drives, right? I think CSS is like 30, 40 gigabytes, whereas again, Berlin Strings is like 200, 300 gigabytes, so like 10 times the size. So you also have to weigh that part into it as well, because we all have limited amounts of storage space, and we don't want to be overwhelmed with the amount of content a library offers as well. So if you can get away with simpler libraries to get your tracks done, then I would definitely go that route, because you can always add more later, right? So look at the depth of sampling. Do you actually need everything that it offers, or can you get away with simpler? Simpler is usually better. Less is more, the 80-20 rule. Factor number 4 is the actual workflow of the library. So this is a little bit more specific. Does the way the library works, the GUI, the scripting, all of that stuff, does it gel with the way you personally like to work? I think a very easy way to understand this for me is the GUI itself. Is there just one knob in the middle, or are there no knobs in the middle? Maybe it's just that one patch that has nothing on it, but you can play it and get an instantly musical line. For me, I love those types of libraries because I'm a very non-techie person when it comes to making music. I just want to I want to load in my patches that I like and start playing and basically make music right away. But when I see libraries that have really complicated GUIs with lots of knobs, lots of faders, EQ, compression, all that stuff that I could also be doing in post, that starts to overwhelm me, because it sort of tells me that, and I'm not saying a lot of developers think like this, but I think subconsciously it's like maybe the developer doesn't have enough confidence in their product that they will stake with one type of aesthetic in their sound. And because they're giving us so many options to tweak, maybe they just want to please all of us and give us all the possibilities. Whereas I think the developers who record the instruments in a certain way and process them in a certain way and stick with that and don't give you too much options to tweak that sound, that's the sort of library that appeals to me, because I really love character libraries, right? Libraries that really sound great out of the box and they let you make music without having many distractions on the screen. So choose libraries that fit with your workflow. And this definitely comes down to watching a lot of walkthroughs on YouTube channels, on developers' websites, go through their content, see what they offer, and also listen to the demos that they offer on their sales pages as well. So if you can find naked demos, meaning they use only that library for the demo, then that's a great representation of what that library will actually sound like. If it's all dressed up with combinations of different libraries from different developers, then it's more difficult to tell how the library will actually sound by itself or in isolation, right? Now, of course, the naked demos could also be dressed up with lots of processing and reverb and stuff like that, but there's higher chances of you getting an accurate representation of what the library will sound like compared to, listening to dressed, fully produced demos all the time, with combinations of other libraries. So yeah, take a look at if it works with your personality, if you like the way it kind of loads, the way it works, if there's animations on the GUI, or is it a very simple approach? You can kind of decide that for yourself. And the fifth and final aspect to think about when purchasing a sample library is the sound. Definitely not the least important, in fact, probably one of the most important things, but that kind of ties into listening to the demos and stuff as well, right? The sound obviously is so important when you're listening to a sample library. And I've learned over the years to trust my gut, trust my instincts when it comes to purchasing a new library or not based on the sound. If I'm not convinced by the sound, if I don't think it sounds musical for the way I write music, if I don't really think it's gonna get me a convincing musical result, then deep down it's not gonna feel good if I purchase that library. And I'm sort of crossing my fingers and hoping that it'll create a good result, right? So I tend to buy libraries and pick up libraries that I find give me instant musical satisfaction and gratification without needing a lot of tweaking, that just sound great out of the box. Those are the sorts of libraries that I tend to gravitate towards. So do you actually enjoy the sound that the library produces? And again, this comes back to watching the walkthroughs, listening to the demos, even asking your friends about this as well. VI Control is a wonderful place where you can ask people for demos of certain libraries. Like you can post up a MIDI file and people will very kindly, they'll run them through the library of your choice and post it back up in the forum, and you can see what that library actually sounds like on its own. It's a really great place to get to know different libraries, get to know a community there, and a lot of people are very nice there. So the sound is obviously very, very important as well, because that ultimately is what we're focusing on when we're producing our music, right? The sound, the music, that's the most important part of the library. So just to quickly recap, the practicality, will it actually be useful for you? Will you actually use the library? So important. Number 2, the price. Does it fit within your budget, right? Is it actually something that can be affordable for your allotted budget? Very, very important to consider as well. The depth of sampling. Do you need the most big library that has tons and tons of dynamic layers and tons of instruments, tons of legato types, etc.? Or can you get away with a very simple library with just one legato type? Just the very standard articulations, right? You kind of have to decide that as well. Number 4 is the workflow. Does it fit with your personality? Do you like the way the GUI looks? Does it give you too many options, or is it very simple by nature? That's also something to factor in too. And then the 5th and final thing is the overall sound. Do you like the way it actually sounds coming through those walkthroughs and those demos? If that new sample library you're looking at ticks all 5 of those boxes, then I would consider that essentially a no-brainer purchase. But it is very rare that a new purchase or a new library will tick all 5 of those boxes. It may take 1, it may take 2, it may even take 3 of those boxes. But again, you have to be very discerning when it comes to your purchasing, unless again you have unlimited amounts of disposable income, which in this economy is probably not the case for most of us. So we just want to be very careful and deliberate with our purchases. And from my personal experience, from all the libraries I have, I maybe use 2 to 5% of those libraries. And I'm planning on doing an upcoming video where I literally delete libraries in the video live with you there, and you can follow along and do them with me too. If you feel like you have too many libraries you would never use, it's totally okay to remove them from your drives, and it just gives you that ease of mind knowing that you have less selection to choose from, but you'll end up making better music in the process because it forces you to learn those tools in a very deep way. So I hope that all made sense. Thank you so much for watching. And if you do want to check out what I personally do use on a regular basis, that 2 to 5% that I mentioned, I've got my sample library buyer's guide down below in the description. It's completely free and it literally goes through every single tool that I personally recommend. And I've also included the utilities, how I use them, and the prices as well, and links as well to those products if you want to check them out very quickly. So again, it's a gift for checking out this video today. Thank you so much for watching. And if you want to check out my complete orchestration process, how I think about virtual orchestration from start to finish, check out this video right over here, and I'll walk you through that entire process from start to finish, plus a practical example there at the very end.